You're such a dumb woman. You finally found it out, huh? We've been divorced for a year.
In the 5th year of our marriage, my husband's affair came to light. I was shocked and immediately headed to the city council to register the divorce papers. However,
They were already registered a year ago.
they handed it back to me saying that this is how I came to know my husband's true nature, which is even more horrifying than having an affair. My name is Allison. I am 30 years old. I am a hardworking office worker who is dedicated to my job. I've always liked to be wrapped up in something, and because of this, I sometimes get really into my work. This has made it difficult for me to find a boyfriend, so my friend invited me to a blind date, where I met my husband, Tim. Since I am kinda spunky, I'm not good at taking a back seat to men. Because of this, I didn't have many opportunities to date men, and even when I did, the relationships didn't last long. However, my husband said,
I like how you're so self-assured in everything you do, and that's what I respect about you, Allison.
I thought that maybe he could be the one to stay by my side. I started dating him with that hope, and we got married quickly without any major conflicts. However, dating and getting married are two different things. I was working all the time anyway, and could not develop my general housekeeping skills. So doing general housework while working was more challenging than working. I always ended up burning the meals. I happened to get the seasoning wrong and it tastes terrible. I can't tell you how many times I've caused the color run in the washing. Normally, if you're this bad at housework, people would be disappointed, but my husband is considerate and ended up doing most of the housework for me, saying,
I like doing housework. So at least let me do the housework.
Some people say that a man should not do housework. But we have our rules, they have theirs. I earned a little more than my husband and he supported me, so I worked harder to make up for it. I thought we were a very close and happy family. However, we have our own problems. That is, after 5 years of married life, we still don't have children. It was difficult to find the right time, partly because I was busy. It was then that I received news from a friend that she was pregnant. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel rushed. Because I had both feelings that I want to work, but I also want a child. However, if I didn't take action, I wouldn't be able to have a child. So I managed to make time and tried to turn him on, but
Sorry, I'm not in the mood for that.
he refused me. I had been keeping away from him because I was busy, so I don't blame him at all. However, I never expected to be rejected, so I said, "Oh, okay. I don't blame you. Everyone has times when they don't feel like it, or are not feeling well." I reflected on the fact that I didn't put myself in his shoes. Then I tried it again when I had a chance, considering how he feels or how busy he is, but he refused me every time. I feel that he does not want me and it makes me sad. But that's fine as I love him and he also loves me anyway. I think it is important to find the right time to have a child, and I guess he means that he wants me to dedicate myself to my job. I interpreted his behavior in a way that suits me at the time. I would soon learn that it was just wishful thinking. On that day, I received a message from my friend who is pregnant, saying that she wanted to talk, because her morning sickness had gotten better. I went to visit her for the first time in a few months. She is a government worker for a city council and is currently on leave due to the heavy morning sickness. But now she feels much better as she rested well and her baby is growing fast. Long time no see, have you been well?
I'm good now. My tummy's gotten so big and my baby's now kicking.
I enjoyed the chat with my friend after a long time. However, looking at her big belly, I still feel envious of her pregnancy. I want to have a baby too. My true feelings spilled out of my mouth. I'm pretty sure that my friend would have encouraged me by saying it would work out eventually. However, she was different today. When she heard that, she turned her head down.
Allison, this is a weird question, but have you been making love with your husband lately?
She asked directly all of the sudden, and it surprised me. I've had such a talk with friends before, but it was only over drinks and we just laughed it off. She is not the kind of person who would suddenly broach such a topic, at least. Why are you asking me that all of the sudden?
Actually, when I went to the obstetrician before, I saw your husband with a young girl.
What? I was stunned as if I was beaten on the head with blunt force when I heard it. The unexpected story that she told me rendered me speechless, but she just described the scene she saw. She saw a young woman leaving the exam room looking happily at the obstetrics and gynecology clinic where my friend goes for regular checkups. When my friend had a casual glance at her in the waiting room, thinking she must have found out that she was pregnant, a man who seemed to be her partner came into the waiting room. She didn't acknowledge the man till then, as he sat with his back to my friend. However, she could eventually see his face when he left the waiting room with the woman, and she was convinced that it was my husband.
That man. He looked exactly like the photo of your husband that you showed me. Look, Allison, when was the last time when he made love with you? Your married life. Is it going well?
It suddenly hit me. Not even recently, but for the past few years, he hadn't even initiated sex.
You should check it out once.
She probably sensed something when she saw me despair and gave me a warning. I come home late on certain days of the week from work, basically. My husband went for drinks on that day, and his company is not allowed to work overtime. So he usually comes home straight after work. He could easily take the time to be with a woman if he wanted to. I wavered after I heard the shocking story. However, I just couldn't move into action. I loved him so much that I even tried to forget about it, as I wanted to trust him, and I felt guilty for doubting him. However, the more I try to forget, the more doubts come to my mind that my husband is having an affair. I dragged it out for days without being able to sort out my feelings, and I ended up making a big mistake at work. Fortunately, I didn't cause any trouble other than our company, but I put a huge strain on my boss and people. I felt I had to change something, so I asked a detective agent to investigate to clear up my doubts. I hope nothing comes up. I wished for it, but as expected, my husband was having an affair. As I suspected, he was meeting up with a woman on days when I came home late, or he said he was going for drinks. Besides, the woman is pregnant. The couple my friend saw was definitely my husband and the other woman. I was terribly shocked that he stabbed me in the back, and I stormed him with the evidence. I was on the warpath that he denied our 5 years of married life, and I lost my temper. What does this mean? You had an affair and got the other woman pregnant. I won't forgive you. I'll divorce you. I stormed him. I guess he would never have seen me like this. However, even seeing me like that, he had a calm smile on his face.
Well, you've just found it out now? Okay, you want a divorce. We've already divorced.
He was saying something that didn't make any sense to me. I want to break up with a man like this right now. I felt a strong sense of disgust for him as a response to how much I loved him. I made him write divorce papers though. He told me something I don't understand.
There is no point doing this.
I ignored it and headed straight to the city council to register them. However,
We cannot accept them.
what do you mean? I don't think there is any mistake in the form. To my surprise, the divorce papers were not accepted by them. Rather, I was told at the reception.
No, your divorce papers were already registered a year ago.
I was confused. What on earth does it mean by that? No matter how many times I asked, I couldn't get any response. As I thought it wouldn't get me anywhere, I tried to call my friend who works for the city council to get some help. I told her the whole story and asked her why the divorce papers were not accepted.
Come on. Before you get divorced, You have a lot to do, like claiming consolation money and such. Cool down.
She persuaded me by saying that. I had completely lost sight of what was important to me. I just wanted to get away from him as soon as possible, as I felt disgusted with him. I regained my still mind, thanks to her, and I decided to talk to her at her house. I'm sorry about what happened. I wasn't calm.
I don't blame you, as it was something I had brought up, in the first place.
After I talked to her, I settled down and I asked her again why the divorce papers had not been accepted.
If there are no flaws in the documents, maybe your husband forged the divorce papers.
Forged documents?
Very occasionally, but there are such irregularities. If it was a year ago, he probably wanted to marry that woman before she got pregnant with his child. But he had to divorce you, and if the reason for the divorce was revealed to be an affair, then he would have to pay consolation money. That's why he probably registered the divorce papers himself without telling you.
It does make sense, as I was told that the divorce papers were registered already. I was grateful, of course, that I could get divorced from him, but if he forged them, then it isn't acceptable. Do you think I can do something about it?
To be honest, I think it's quite difficult to prove whether they are forged or not. Even the handwriting would probably be written in a similar way to yours, and it would be possible to steal the seal stamp as you live in the same house. You should consult a lawyer for those aspects as well as other stuff.
Once the document has been officially registered, they would be involved with the law, so my friend, who works at the city council, recommended speaking to the expert. Then I headed to the lawyer, who was available straight away, for advice. I was charged a little more than the regular fee for the consultation, but I was grateful that he was available right away. When I told the lawyer everything, he said I could have the divorce papers invalidated as long as I could either prove that I didn't write them or he wrote them himself. So, all I have to do is get my husband to confess?
Yes, that's correct.
I could divorce my husband properly. Having been given that answer, I signed a contract with the lawyer on the spot. I thought it would be better to have a third party between us, as I had just lost my temper and I got out of control. I then came home with the recording function on my phone. My husband was triumphant.
You and I haven't been related for a long time.
And he looked down at me with a look I had never seen before.
You can't do the housework even though you're a woman, and I think you could earn more money than I do. But it was too little to go all out. I thought you were beautiful at first, but you are insensitive, which made me disillusioned. On top of that, you didn't let me do anything. You have no choice if I divorce you. You are left on the shelf, all you can do is shut your mouth and bring me the money.
He said whatever he wanted. I glared at my husband while taking deep breaths many times. But that doesn't mean you could forge the divorce papers. I stormed. But he didn't make any move to be apologetic about it.
Because you wouldn't have signed it anyway, and they simply accepted it. It was really a piece of cake, since your handwriting is unnecessarily neat. It was hard to copy it though.
He revealed it loudly without knowing that it was being recorded. He was such an idiot. Although I was about to go ballistic, I calmed down a little and remained still when he confessed.
Get out of here, you're an obstacle.
I packed my stuff, left the house, and headed to my parents' house as he said that. I then started to take revenge on him. The lawyer later contacted him and demanded compensation from my husband and the other woman. Fortunately, the divorce papers were registered a year ago, so it was legally possible to claim compensation. The husband, the other woman, myself, and both lawyers discussed the matter, and my husband said,
She's now pregnant and going through a tough time. What if something happens? How could you ask for compensation at such an important time? You're a cold-blooded beast.
He kept talking ridiculously, and that's the pot calling the kettle black. However, the lawyer calmly said,
If you refuse to pay compensation, it will only lead to a trial. With this much evidence, I think it will be difficult for you to win.
Despite the lawyer's advice, he is reluctant to do so. He was complaining something, but the other woman couldn't bear to see him and said,
"I'll pay for it. Just break up with this terrible woman."
The situation changed drastically when she suggested this.
Oh, are you sure? That's very kind of you.
He had shining eyes. I was disgusted by the ridiculous farce he was showing. Even in this situation, he still seems to be a fatuous nincompoops. I decided to show him reality and demanded compensation in one payment. The other woman immediately transferred the money with a smile on her face. They are full of glee, as they can now cut ties with me. Surely this is the end of the divorce. However, this is not the end of my revenge. I reported my husband to the police for forgery of a private document with a signature or seal and bigamy. It can be established that my husband forged my divorce papers, as there is evidence of his own confession. Therefore, the divorce papers that my husband registered a year ago were invalidated, and he was in a situation where he officially married two women, me and the other woman, and he ended up committing bigamy. As I also filed a claim to the police, he was later arrested. He will apparently receive the penalty of several months to several years imprisonment for forgery of a private document with a signature or seal, and the penalty of 2 years imprisonment for bigamy. My husband was able to get out with a suspended sentence, but he happened to go through hell from then on. The other woman turned out to be the daughter of the head of the company, which is the business partner of the company my husband works for. He happened to meet her when he visited there, and apparently made a move on her, aiming to marry into money. As he has a good-looking face, she completely fell for him apparently. The reason he was able to behave like that, even after the affair was revealed, was probably because he underestimated that he could become a successor for the company as their son-in-law. However, it didn't work out that way. Her father, the head of the company, was on the warpath as my husband got his daughter pregnant, and to top it all, he forged the documents and was arrested. Then her father backed out of the deals with the company my husband works for, which caused damage to the company. Because of this, the company claimed him, which saddled him with huge debts.
This wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to be a rich man.
My friend apparently saw him shouting like that near a cheap apartment somewhere. Although the other woman left him, she will now have to raise her children alone. Besides, it will be hard for a mother of a child to get a young man, which makes it harder to get remarried. I registered the divorce papers my husband had written, and this time we divorced properly. I moved near my workplace with the compensation paid in one payment, and devoted myself to work I love, while I'm gradually learning to do housework, which I suck at. I have to reflect on the fact that I used to leave everything to my ex-husband. However, nothing ever goes right the first time. I enjoy my life alone while burning my omelette. What did you like about this story? Please also subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
You're not my family. Get the hell out of here.
Saying this, my mother-in-law tries to get rid of me. She makes a victorious face, but I wonder if she thinks I'll struggle with that. I took the divorce papers out of my bag, saying I will, with a smile. My husband goes deathly pale. From now on, you'll have to pay for everything, but good luck with that. My name is Nancy, a 35-year-old office worker. It has been 3 years since I married my husband, Mike. But I should deserve a pat on the back for how well we've lasted for 3 years. My married life with my husband was different from my ideal life. To begin with, my husband never did any housework at all. He said he was afraid to touch a knife to cook, and did nothing. When I asked him to at least clean the house or do the laundry, he simply refused, saying he just can't do that. Then I have to do everything as I become impatient. It is really hard to do the housework, keeping a tired body going, and it makes me completely knackered every day. I have been living like that since the beginning of my marriage, but there is one reason why I did not get a divorce. It goes back to when I was dating my husband. You see, I grew up in a single-parent household after losing my father at a young age. My father died when I was very young, and I grew up in a single-mother household. My mother and I got on well with each other, and we overcame everything together. That is why I spent a very intimate time with my mother, and we were so glued together. My mother worked hard as a company employee and supported me. I wanted to give back to her, so I went to a good university and was hired by a great company. I took her on trips and to fancy restaurants. We enjoyed our time together. However, when I turned 30, my mother suffered a heart attack and passed away. I was overwhelmed with sorrow and I despaired. Although I wanted to take care of her more, I hadn't shown her being in my wedding dress yet, and I had so many things left to do with her, I had to say goodbye to her. Since then, I have been wrecked mentally. I worked hard, but I was lonely, sad, and cried every day when I got home. I met my husband under these circumstances. He was a business partner. We had known each other for a while, and he was concerned that I didn't look happy. We were having a meeting as usual, then after the meeting, he suddenly invited me for lunch.
This is a restaurant I recommend that serves set dishes. Their food reminds me of homemade dishes the lady owner cooks.
He took me out to the restaurant saying that I hadn't felt like cooking for a while and had been having instant noodles or lunch boxes from a convenience store. So I was very moved when I had well-prepared homemade meals.
Well, are you okay?
What was it?
Well, I've noticed you seem down lately.
His words surprised me. I thought I hid my feelings well at work. But he found it out, and that was the first time I felt the urge to talk to someone. It is hard to take it all on myself alone. That night, I invited him to a pub and told him everything.
I didn't realize that. You have lost your mother.
She was really important to me, so it's been really hard ever since I lost her, and if I'm inattentive, I feel like I buckle under the anguish. When I said this, he gently told me,
Thank you for telling me the story, even though you are going through such pain. If it eases your pain even a little, would you share it with me, Nancy? I'd like to help.
From out of nowhere, he said that to me, and it made my tension go away. Then I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. I was really glad that we were seated in a private room, because I kind of felt something was off. He gently offered me a handkerchief and said,
You can cry in front of me, without worrying.
Then we started seeing each other frequently, started dating naturally, and were on a track for marriage. My husband was the one who gave me hope for life when I suffered heartache. That's why I loved him and didn't consider divorce easily. It's not like he had terrible traits, he just doesn't help me with housework. No couples are perfect, and there will be areas where I give concessions to him. For this reason, I didn't come across divorcing my husband, even though he did not do any housework from the beginning of our marriage. Under these circumstances, however, there came a person who made me even more unsure whether I wanted to stay married or not. That is my mother-in-law. She seemed to dislike me from the beginning of our marriage.
You're from a single-parent family and don't even have parents anymore. That's kind of unreliable.
I was shocked when she suddenly said that to me when I introduced myself. At that moment, my father-in-law got angry with her, saying,
Stop being so rude.
It quieted her down, but from this point, I had a hard time with her. Then whenever I went to visit my in-laws, she would always give me sarcastic comments.
I totally feel sorry for Mike, getting a plain wife. At least I wish you were prettier.
I really disliked her because she says such things in front of me without hesitation. Then my father-in-law always gets between her and me, so we managed to avoid a big squabble for the time being, but he became physically frail and needed assistance. Then she forces us to live together with them.
I can't look after him doing all the housework on my own. Please, I need your help.
She begged us like that. My husband said we can't leave her alone and sought me to live with them. I didn't want to live with her, but given the circumstances as they are, I felt like it was our responsibility to help family members in times like this. I think it was partly because I had no other family left. You never know when you will lose your family. So I didn't want my husband to regret, so I agreed to live with them. However, that was, as expected, a mistake. She was kind when asking for help, but once we started living together, she began to pick on me.
Why do you come home later than Mike? Normally, the wife should come home first, don't you think? Can't you even understand that?
I had worked hard when I was single, which led to a decent position at work. So, working overtime isn't anything special. My husband, on the other hand, I found out after I got married that he was paid quite low. Also, he didn't get any promotions or anything, so his income remained low, even after we got married. But then she suddenly made a surprising comment to me.
Although you earn less than Mike does, why do you keep working?
What?
You can be a full-time homemaker with his income, can't you? But you're working, that makes me suspicious.
I looked at my husband. He looked panicked and joined the conversation.
Oh, I'm asking her to work. You see, if we have children in the future or something, we will need money. So I'm asking her to save up for that.
When he said this, she looked convinced.
I got it. You should have told me sooner. But you looked so surprised and I couldn't make sense of it.
It's understandable that it took me by surprise. I stared at my husband. He looked very uncomfortable. Then, after dinner, I asked him heatedly in the bedroom. What did your mother mean by that comment? I earn more, don't I? That's why I'm paying for all our living expenses and the savings for our future with your income. Why does she think the other way around?
Well, that's...
When I asked him, he began to speak hesitatingly.
I'm her pride and joy. I was smart and graduated from a very high-level university. She always boasted about me to the neighbors. But I couldn't find a job, and even since I got hired, the salary remained low. I don't want to see her sad face, so I've been lying.
What kind of lies?
Well, it's about where I work. I've been telling her that I'm employed at a major company. Also, I've been passing off your salary as mine.
I was disgusted with what he said. It's great that he cares about his mother. But is it really necessary to tell such lies?
Please, can you keep the truth from my parents?
What the heck? So, you want me to pretend I earn less than you do?
Yeah, that's the idea. Please.
I think it would be easier if you told the truth.
Please. Men have pride.
I didn't understand what pride was, but he didn't seem to be willing to step back. So I had no choice but to give in. I was going along with it as he said, but my mother-in-law's verbal abuse became increasingly unbearable day by day.
Having low education and income is really hopeless. Even if you save your salary, it won't break the bank anyway.
Even though it wasn't true. I was about to say something, but I felt my husband's gaze and stopped. However, something unexpected happened shortly after that. My father-in-law passed away. He had been protecting me ever since he needed assistance and had to stay at home all the time. But there is no one to protect me anymore. She took that opportunity and got abusive to me. I couldn't help her during the week because I was busy with work and housework, but I looked after him on weekends. Even so, why do I have to be verbally abused? On top of that, she started hatching a plan.
Since we received an inheritance, why not buy a new house? Let's live more comfortably.
She said that out of the blue. I wonder if she's gonna live with us even after he passed away? Then my husband is very into that.
That's a great idea, let's do that.
Then they started visiting real estate agents without telling me, and my jaw dropped. I guess he has forgotten that I pay all the living expenses. At least my husband could care about me. However, he was so excited about setting up a new house that he didn't seem to see me. Then they finally signed the contract for the new house. Well, if they've signed the contract, then never mind. I was also packing up my stuff, getting ready for moving. But when it was getting close to the move, she dropped a bombshell.
What the heck are you doing? You don't seriously think you can come to the new house with us, do you?
Ah.
That house is for me and Mike. A woman who earns little and can't do housework properly has no right to live there.
No, that's not true. As a family member.
No, you are not my family. Get the hell out of here.
She tried to kick me out, saying that. At this point, something inside me snapped. Until now, I have helped my husband in many ways to get along with his family and to avoid regrets, but I can't stand it any longer. She has a victorious look on her face, but I wonder if she thinks I'll struggle with that. I took the divorce papers out of my bag, saying I will, with a smile. I slapped my husband with them. His face turned pale.
Why do you need divorce papers?
I've always been shattered by you and your mother. I've always kept these ready for when things have gone unacceptable. As I said that, my mother-in-law smirked.
Isn't this perfect, Mike? Get rid of this plain middle-aged woman and find a beautiful young wife. With your income, you'll easily attract a new partner.
His face remained pale, but he still signed the divorce papers. I guess he couldn't let his pride down. I put them in my bag, took my stuff, and said this to him for the last time. From now on, you'll have to pay for everything, but good luck with that. It made him look down, and my mother-in-law, who knew nothing about it, still had a victorious look on her face. That's how I ended my life with my husband. I stayed in a budget hotel for the time being, then rented an affordable apartment and started living on my own. A month later, I received a call from an unknown number. I took the call just in case. The person on the other end was my ex-mother-in-law.
Ah, is this Nancy? Thank God you answered.
What on earth do you want to talk to me about? I'm no longer related, and I don't want to talk to you.
Don't say that. I need your help.
I knew she would say that.
I had absolutely no idea that you were earning more than he does and that his salary was so low.
Are you saying, if you had known that, you wouldn't have picked on me? Then you're practically admitting that you change your attitude depending on their status. Is that correct?
Well, that's. Anyway, you should help us. Once the monthly living costs like water or power bills are deducted, it's pretty tough to pay the mortgage with his salary.
Well, of course, I used to pay for all the living expenses. I believe they will barely make ends meet with his salary.
My husband's inheritance has been used for the deposit and...
I had glanced before at the house they were buying, and it was quite extravagant, which makes the amount of monthly mortgage repayment very high. There is no way that he could manage it with his salary alone. They would have had to go into debt to continue living in that house. But that's no longer my problem. Whatever you say, it's none of my business. Please tell my ex-husband to let his pride down, or he is miserable. Also, you should stop picking on your daughter-in-law, or you will have to go through hell and back, like that.
Ugh.
Bye for now.
Hey, wait.
She was shouting something, but I hung up the phone regardless and immediately blocked incoming calls from her. My ex-husband is a helpless person, as he ended up digging his own grave by not letting his own pride down until the last. I wonder if the kind man I knew before dating hasn't existed anymore. A few months later, I walked past the house where my ex-husband and ex-mother-in-law lived as I was curious, but the for sale sign was already up. Well, that's the expected outcome, I suppose. With that thought in mind, I went back to my normal routine. I miss my mother from time to time, but now I am even more committed to my work, and I have just recently been promoted. I enjoy my work and am happy for the time being. I don't want to be in love or get married for a while, so I want to continue to devote myself to work more and more. Her husband is a real idiot, clinging to his pride, and he let a big fish go. Also, the mother-in-law is the same kind of person who continues to bully her daughter-in-law without knowing anything. I suppose it was a good thing that she has cut ties with people like that. Her work seems to be going as well as ever, so she should be able to further enjoy her single life. Then I think she can slowly and patiently look for a new partner. I wish her all the best for the future, and I hope she has happy days ahead. Thank you for watching. How did you like today's story? Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next story.